Without truth, there can be no justice.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, have you reached a verdict?
We have, Your Honor.
Speak out. Ask those questions. Demand that truth.
Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 45 of Truth is Justice. If you've listened to some of the last few episodes, you'll be familiar with our suicide warnings. Each one has been different, and they've hopefully been helpful compared to something that we could have offered up that was stock standard each week. If you feel that discussions of suicide or depression may trigger negative emotions for you, please stop listening now and contact one of the support lines that can be found in the show notes. What I'm going to do is read a few quotes and some commentary from a website named Mental Health Daily. They can be found at mentalhealthdaily.com. The first one is, suicide doesn't end the chances of life getting worse. It eliminates the possibility of it ever getting any better. It's sometimes difficult to realise that your life will eventually get better, whether it's from a scientific breakthrough involving a new treatment for a mental or other condition, or something as simple as making a new friend. It's possible to recover from feelings of depression and pain. If you commit suicide, you eliminate all hope for the future, and you eliminate the chance to find enjoyment in life. And the next quote, if you are looking for a sign not to kill yourself, this is it. And if you're looking for some sign to stay alive, consider this quote and my mention of it on the podcast, and you're hearing it, as the sign that you need. Whether you know it or not, the world needs your talents and your unique inner gifts. You have the opportunity to make some sort of positive difference in this world. And finally, no, you aren't alone. Yes, we all feel this way sometimes. No, you won't always feel like this. And yes, the world is a much better place with you in it. This case, at least from the perspective of those pushing murder narratives, has been based almost entirely on not just speculation, but rumours, a little bit of bluffing, and a generous helping of outright lies. If you looked at the way this has been considered by some and attributed that behaviour instead to investigating officers and the state, then there would be widespread outrage, and rightly so. It seems that there is a certain tolerance due to the fact that the speculation is coming from private citizens and not law enforcement. There have only been a very small number of points made that have actually been based on fact, but even the nature of those would be furiously debated and disputed if the same was done from what could be best described as the other side, so law enforcement, the state, etc. Meaning, the claims and rationale used to get there make perfect sense to some because of their belief in what that supports, but change the perspective, and many of those same people would be against it. So take one specific element, for example, the Arden report. Now, I have no doubt that Dr. Arden provided his genuine, educated thoughts on the material he considered when preparing his report for the Andriacchio family. Consider, though, his commentary on the issue of lividity and rigor mortis. His comments, supportive of the movement of Christian's body, were specifically and solely related to Christian's right calf. He made no mention of the relevance of apparent lividity visible on other parts of Christian's body, such as his chest that I highlighted last week. And make no mistake, those other elements are extremely important. So what does that mean? Well, imagine if I offered up an analysis on one specific element that appeared to confirm suicide. and entirely neglected to highlight related information that may be contradictory to that. Now, people supportive of murder would highlight that immediately and claim that my specific element of analysis was largely irrelevant because I didn't give the full context and address any material that may contradict and therefore invalidate my claims. Yet, we don't see that at all with Dr. Arden's point about lividity. It's accepted wholeheartedly by those desperately wanting to find confirmation of murder. In fact, take a look at many of the different elements offered up in support of murder. The vast majority will rapidly fail when put under stress from a close look at the evidence. Now, this tactic of some true crime groups and podcasts, and we saw it with the Melgar case, is highly effective in generating controversy and supporting claims that the official findings were wrong. And why? Because if you take one small element and apply whatever thought process is necessary to make that one small element work for your position, you'll be able to create multiple independent points of support. The key word, though, being independent, because as soon as you try to bring them all together and apply one set of parameters, you'll see their validity just fall away. As I've said many times before, so many important elements of this matter are about perspective and consistency. You need to take a consistent approach to considering all of the material available, and you need to do so fully aware of the perspective with which you are doing it. Now, I had indicated that I would continue the lividity discussion on this episode, but I've decided to delay that by an episode or two. Those of you on our Facebook page would know why. For everyone else, it's because I wanted to talk about something I think is hugely important and has massive relevance to the consideration of large amounts of so-called evidence gathered by the Andriacchio family. It is the interview with Ms. Jordan Edwards, conducted by Ms. Gail Mills and arranged by Ray and performed at a registered medical health facility. Now first, one quick point on a different topic. I mentioned last week how the claims made by Ray that Christian would not have authored the text messages about suicide because of how a fellow employee might have seen those messages would view him seemed unusual to me, given Ray's involvement of Miss G, someone who worked under Ray at Allied Health, in conducting ongoing observations, covert surveillance essentially, on the apartment in which Christian and Josh lived. Now, what I didn't include in that conversation was to note that there was not just the one person who was asked to perform ongoing observations on the apartment, there was at least one other. Now, I say at least because it's difficult to know for sure how many people Ray had engaged to perform that function, but we know of at least two, Ms. G and Mr. Mills. Now, the formal statement given by Mr. Mills is available on our website if you want to read it. Now, this is where the perspective comes in, I suppose. Now, to me, a parent conducting general checks on their children when they have left home is entirely normal. I can imagine I'll do the same when my own children leave home. It will probably comprise visiting them regularly and calling them, etc. Now, what to me is completely unreasonable is engaging at least two people, two employees from a registered medical facility, at least one of whom reported to Ray, to watch over the apartment where they lived, to take notes and report back on their observations. Essentially, conducting covert surveillance of your own sons and their friends. That seems somewhat extreme to me, but it does help explain the interpretation given by Ray to one other aspect of the matter. Christian would regularly follow a tracking function installed on Whitley's phone, and what he saw sometimes caused him, as we can see, evidenced in his text messages, a considerable level of anxiety. Now, we'll get into the full details of all of that in a later episode, but that matter is raised in a Without Warning episode, and it's explained away by Ray as representing an act of safety, an act of love, that Christian was doing that to ensure that Whitley was always safe, and that it is an entirely normal thing for someone to do. Now, Ray also noted in that same episode the use of a similar tracking function across members throughout the Andriacchio family. Now, many of you would be familiar with an instance where Alexa hides her phone in one location whilst proceeding without her phone, and therefore unable to be tracked, to another location with a level of freedom. Now, remember the story Ray tells of her claims that Whitley tried to get Alexa into trouble, and the assertion that Alexa was actually at home at the time. Who knows? Maybe she was at home, or Maybe she wasn't. Maybe it was one of those instances where she deliberately left her phone behind to avoid being tracked. Now further, on the explanation given by Ray that the use of tracking apps between partners is entirely reasonable, as it can be justified through a concern for their safety, now that takes on a very different context when you consider what Ray felt was reasonable in her decision to engage covert surveillance of Christian and Josh's apartment. Reviewing the phone data shows that Whitley's safety was not Christian's primary reason for the use of the tracking function, at least not one that is communicated in any meaningful way through his messages. In fact, Christian's concern for her safety isn't specifically mentioned even once. The material we have, Christian's own words, notes that the primary, and I suggest the sole purpose of the tracking function was to address Christian's own anxiety around Whitley's fidelity. I take a very different view of the use of tracking apps in that respect to the views shared by Ray, especially when the goal of the user is clearly not the safety of the person being tracked. I feel that the use of the app in that way is a gross invasion of someone's privacy, and to me, it potentially represents one element of a relationship that has potentially psychologically questionable attributes. It has, of course, been suggested that Whitley agreed to it, and that her phone had the same function available to track Christian. Now, those points used in some way to suggest that it was entirely proper, I don't agree with. I don't support that argument at all. Just because the same ability was offered to Whitley doesn't have to make her comfortable or agreeable to it. Now, we'll come back to this topic in another episode, but there are three somewhat related issues to the tracking of Whitley by Christian and the tracking function generally that I wanted to quickly touch on. First, that it was done out of Christian's love for Whitley, in a similar way to how Ray described all the members of the Andriacchio family being tracked. Now, that seems to directly contradict statements made by Ray that suggest that Christian didn't have deep feelings for Whitley and only ever had intentions to rekindle his relationship with an ex-partner. And second, the recently widely discussed suggestion that gun night was in fact a gathering of assassins waiting for Christian to arrive so that he could be killed, and the connected suggestions that Whitley was expecting him at any time are odd, given that presumably she could have just checked the app. And third, it would appear that Christian himself avoided or removed or switched off the tracking by his mother and possibly other family members. And we know that because we hear how, when they received the news of Christian's death, rather than simply referring to a tracking app, which would have pinged the apartment, they try via other means to confirm whether he was on the boat or not. So Christian himself didn't feel it necessary or warranted to have the tracking app functioning on his phone for his mother and potentially other family members, but did feel it necessary for Whitley to have that on. Anyway, as I said, we'll come back to those points on another episode. Now, it would be one thing for an overly controlling and or protective parent to do just one of those things, but that Ray, a registered mental health worker who is currently working with patients, views both the covert surveillance of her own son's apartment by at least 2 fellow employees and the use by her son of a tracking function on his partner's phone to monitor her location to address his anxiety as wholly reasonable is absolutely bizarre to me. If you find both those things entirely reasonable, aside from feeling entirely sorry for your loved ones who bear the brunt of that, then you may find this next section of the episode wholly reasonable also. Now, for everyone else, this next section will highlight exactly why you should have some serious doubts about how some of the claim material of evidentiary value has been obtained by the Andriacchio family. Now, as many of you are aware, extensive commentary has been provided on many matters of varying proximity to Christian's death by members of the Andriacchio family. Some commentary obtained is wildly speculative, and some commentary appears to have come entirely out of the blue, and some commentary has changed dramatically to support the murder narrative in a more substantial way over the years. Now, one of these elements of private data gathering by the Andriacchio family involved the decision to formally interview Miss Edwards. Now, these are the circumstances of that interview. It was an interview of a minor. It related to the circumstances surrounding a death claimed to be by homicide and individuals claimed to be involved in it. It prompted Miss Edwards to provide information on people it was suggested were responsible for the claimed homicide. A claimed homicide which Miss Edwards had no direct connection to, but which the interview sought to inject her into the narrative of. And, with unconfirmed but highly questionable incentives offered to Miss Edwards to participate in the interview, and an interview arranged by an individual in Ray, currently formally working in the mental health field as a registered person, with claimed experience in social work and with formal education in criminal justice, and currently dealing with patients with highly sensitive mental health issues. And an interview performed by a former law enforcement officer in Ms. Gail Mills, with experience in administering polygraph tests and professionally trained in formal interviewing techniques. And an interview performed at a currently operational, registered mental health care facility, of which Ray was and remains an employee. And an interview performed without any evidence of appropriate notification to or consent obtained from Ms. Edwards' parents or guardians. An interview broadcast in full to an audience exceeding 16 million people via a for-profit podcast in Culpable, with the explicit permission of Ray for the interview to be broadcast. And finally, an interview fully intended to be far, far more than just a casual chat with a child. An interview that had every intention of being used in a formal legal setting and using those words spoken by the child to support a murder narrative based on nothing more than baseless theories, rumours, lies, and a bit of bluffing. Yet, despite my multiple attempts to seek comment from Ray on these matters, not a single word of explanation has been received, other than an earlier single public comment by Ray suggesting that the location of the interview at the registered business address of one medical facility rather than another medical facility a very short distance away inexplicably makes the interview somehow ethical and correct. And to be abundantly clear, multiple efforts have been made to seek comment on this matter from Ray, yet no commentary has been forthcoming from her or her representatives to provide any clarity at all over why she feels the interview was ethical or appropriate. Without exception, no child should be placed in that situation without the explicit, fully informed consent of their parents or guardians, and then only with the parents' or guardians' full appreciation for how the material obtained was intended or considered to be used, and only with the appropriate legal approvals obtained by the parents or guardians for such use, including full control over the final material produced. There should have been all of the appropriate safeguards put in place for Ms. Edwards, both during the interview that day and afterwards, and the same formal processes that Ray and the medical facilities that she's employed by, and the one where the interview was conducted, would insist are completed for the interaction with children on their premises. That should all have been completed for Miss Edwards. Now, either there was a serious lapse of judgment on the part of Ray in arranging this interview, something she certainly hasn't indicated and appeared to expressly discount when she claimed the interview was both ethical and correct, or do the circumstances of that interview give us an insight into exactly what Ray was prepared to do to gather material for her campaign, and the disregard that she had for the rights of a minor who, as a registered medical worker, bringing a minor into her place of employment, registered medical facility, she had the duty of care and an absolute obligation to protect. Now, I'm going to play 2 audio clips for you. The first is a short clip that Miss Edwards released herself with respect to that interview. And the second is a conversation between Mr. Wagner and Miss Edwards regarding the interview.
Hi, so my name is Jordan. I'm sure the last time you guys heard of me or from me was from my podcast when I was 16 years old. And there's just some things I want to say about it, some things that I want to get off my chest, and just to really inform you guys and let you guys know. So one being, everything I said was hearsay. Everything was hearsay. I was told at 16 years old that I would receive $10,000 to provide a story to the Andracchios when all I received was $500 and a jar of some really, really low-grade weed from Todd Andracchio. And yes, I do have a witness. 2, I don't believe it was a murder. In fact, I know it was a suicide. I didn't know the severity of the situation at that time in my life. I didn't. And I wish to God that I would have. I don't even think Ray had the chance to mourn the death of her son before she started to want to blame. I think there's 2 things about suicide that we all know. That, one, it's always going to be the person we least expect. For one, it's always going to be the sunshine in the group that's hurting the most. Because you never know what someone is going through internally. You never know what certain words or actions or something that triggers people, triggers certain emotions for people. So be mindful of that as well, from here on out, just in the future and with your friends and family and stuff. And you also never know someone's past, what has traumatized them. And, we're all human. We all take damage certain ways, and we all handle damage certain ways. And I'm also, one thing that I am very aware of that won't leave my mind is how fake I was and how I folded on someone that would never do that to me and someone that I really love. I folded. I did. And I'll carry that on my back for the rest of my life. I will. And so will she. You guys are all being motivated. You're getting caught up in the hearsay just like I did. You guys want justice for Christian, but you're not giving him any because his message hasn't even been heard. I'm sorry, Whitley, and I'm sorry to everyone that I deceived, and that's all I really have to say. Be nice, please. So of course I wanted to talk to you about, everything going on.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
I kind of figured that's what you were wanting to talk about because I knew they put you on that latest podcast.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's so crazy.
And I don't think anybody when they originally when like you and when Dallas and when everybody originally got involved in this mess, I don't think y'all ever expected it to really go to this extreme and it to be exposed in the ways that y'all have been exposed.
Well, because we were told that they wanted a story, and so, it was like hearsay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we were 16 years old? I just turned 21 2 days ago.
Yeah.
3 years ago?
Yeah. Well,
I think I had just turned 16 that August, and it was in January, I believe.
Well, it was February of 14 when the incident happened.
February 14th?
Yeah, February of 2014 is when it actually happened.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that was 5 years ago. 6
Yeah.
now, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, that's what I was wondering, too, though. I mean, did they, like, approach you, or how did that happen?
Andrachios? Okay,
Yeah.
so this is why it's so fucked up to me, Frankie. Like, I have not talked to anyone from Meridian about this except my mom.
Yeah.
That's it. Just my mom. That's the only person, and I don't know. And so this is what's so fucked up about it. Tyler Thompson told me, I'm telling you the truth, I don't know who to talk to. I don't know what to say, and I don't want to incriminate myself or say something wrong for it to be turned on someone else.
No,
You know?
that's perfectly fine. That's understandable.
So I don't want to reach out, but Tyler Thompson, which is Judge Thompson's grandson, he was like, if you give my family a story, you know, like, if you know anything or if you've heard anything, they'll give you $10,000. And I'm 16. Like, I promise you one thing about me, like, I like to chase money. Like, I love money. I won't do anything for money, but I like money. And so that was motivating for me, you know?
Yeah.
So, but everything that was said was just like hearsay. And eventually the Andrachios, like, we went to Alliance Health Center, and there was like a lady, a polygraph lady. Mind you, I was a minor. There was a lady there to give me a polygraph test, and it was...
Yeah, that was that Gail Mills lady, the one who worked for the Highway Patrol.
Right.
Yeah. She's a friend of Ray's, yeah.
So eventually it was like a mason jar full of weed and $500.
Is what they gave you to give your story?
Yeah.
And who gave you that?
Todd Andrachios. And Kyle Estes was with me. You know my ex, right? You know him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Todd, Christian's dad, gave you...
Yeah, and like this is why, okay, like this is how I know it was around January, because I remember I gave Blair like a fat-ass nug out of it.
Yeah. So you gave Blair some of the
For
weed.
her birthday. Yeah, for her birthday. But like Frankie, like this is like, and I guess none of us knew the severity of what is really going on. You know what I mean? Like, you know, like we know it was a suicide. We know, like, but it's just like stuff you hear, you know, like, and especially at a young age, and like, you know, like I should have made better decisions considering it, like regarding it, you know. But I want to like I most definitely 100% should have. Like, this is so fucked up. I want to make like a video.
But you've told your mom this?
Yeah.
And what'd she say?
She is like, she doesn't blame Ray because she has a dead son out of it.
Yeah.
You know, so she's not, like, none of us are here to, like, talk shit or, like, disgrace someone, you know. So, like, we understand the situation. Like, we understand her heart and, like, why she's motivated. So, like, she thinks it was them, like, manipulating a bunch of kids, like, taking advantage of youth, you know. She didn't think she did it a fair way.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you're right. I mean, especially you being 16 at the time, or 17, however old you were.
Yeah, 16, 17. I think I had just turned 16, and I was turning 17 that August.
Yeah. Well, that's when it occurred. But when was it that you did that interview?
I don't know. It was like, I know I was like 16 turning 17.
Okay. And when was it that they're trying to say that you had that conversation that Whitley told you something?
2000. That was like the same time.
So
when they came to Key West and they were like, we're producers, we're doing a TV show about Whitley, you know, didn't really talk much about
They asked me what happened. I told them I didn't know what happened. And then they were, like, asking about Whitley. And I never said anything bad about her. Like, this was recent. This was, like...
It was back around February.
This year or something. Yeah, they had showed up. And then, since I was working, you know, like, I was dancing, like, for a little while. Like, that's not what I'm doing now. That's not who I am. So, like, I mean, shit, like, I did what I had to do.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah,
I mean, of course there's other options, but...
You're trying to pay the rent and eat and make a living.
Yes, like, and it wasn't, like, a career. But anyway, so...
Well, listen, so that was, I know that was sometime this year before the podcast, but they said the other day at the end of that podcast that they had spoken with you again in Mississippi at some point. Did you ever talk to them again, to the podcast people or to investigators at another point?
No, I don't remember even when I was in Mississippi. I've only been in Mississippi, like, I don't know, I'll have to hear that and see. To me, like, it's just, I listened to it, but I didn't hear that part.
Yeah, I think that's what they said toward the end. I don't know, but, you know, some of that stuff runs together, so I'm not real sure, but I thought that's what they said toward the end.
Have you talked to Whitley?
Yeah, I mean, I stayed in touch with Whitley, you know, because we're trying to help her get through all this because...
How is she?
She's fine. I mean, she's doing well. I mean, yeah, she's struggling. She's having a tough time, but, you know, overall, she's
strong.
She's doing okay. I mean, she's doing better than most people would be doing who are faced with this, but the fact that they put out there where she lives, where she works, and things like that, you know, and then people go in looking for her at work or people have called her work, you know, that's just not fair to her that people are doing things like that. And I think that's one of their things is they want people to make her life miserable. But
I mean, yeah, just like, it's like, and I also feel like it's because she hasn't spoken on it, you know?
Yeah.
Not saying, you know, that comes with her time. Whenever she feels is right, or if she never feels, you know, it's completely up to her.
Well, that's really
nobody hears the other story. Nobody hears the other side. They only hear one side.
Well, and that's the thing that's been trying to happen. You know, Joel Hamilton's been running that unjustifiable page where we got a copy of the case file, and he's been putting
nobody hears about that page, but they all hear about culpable.
Yeah, well, there's a bunch of people on it. There's over 2,000 people looking at it, so, you know, he's been getting the truth. He's been getting the actual evidence out of the case file and getting the evidence out there. You know, the biggest things were, you know, like Christian actually did have he tested positive for gunshot residue. He was the only one who tested positive. Whitley and Dylan only tested for particles that are indicative of gunshot. They didn't test positive.
So Andrachios are manipulating this and everyone around them to get their own satisfaction because they don't want to feel the blame for why their son committed suicide.
Yes, correct.
They know.
But yeah, there's a lot of things in that file. I mean, all the text messages of him threatening to kill himself. But yeah, I was wondering because about if they had offered you anything to give a story because I know that's been said by more than one person, and so I had wondered about that. So Todd himself,
I want to make a video. Just tell me what you think about it. Like, I want to make a video and just speak my side of everything that I know. And that everything, like, speak my truth. And, like, I don't want to post it on impulse. I don't want anyone to see it, you know. I mean, like...
Well, let me tell you this. If you did something like that, you need to let me talk to some people and help you with that. And get it done correctly and get it put out correctly and not
incriminating
not put yourself in a situation where it's going to end up causing you any issues.
I know. That's my goal. And, like, I don't know. I know I cannot do this by myself.
Exactly. Well, don't do anything, and let me talk to some people and see if we can't help you get that, if we can't facilitate that and get it done for you. Because I don't want you to put yourself in a situation to where you end up going through the same type of hell that Whitley's going through.
No.
But see, I was told that Tyler came to you and that he was the one that offered you.
That's exactly what happened. Because that's Kyle's, like, one of his childhood best friends. So yeah. Kyle was talking to me. Tyler was talking to me. You know, like, and both of, like, I don't know, it was just a lot of pressure. And then around that time, I think Whitley was so mad. She wasn't mad. I think she felt left out when I got there, like, because I left my stuff at her house, and she, like, wouldn't give it back to me because she said she deserves it for the way I shitted on our friendship, because I guess, like, I wasn't giving her the attention as much as I was, because I had gotten in a relationship with Kyle at around that time.
Yeah. Well, and I just know Whitley was just hurt more than anything because, you know, y'all have been friends off and on for years. So I feel like just more than anything it hurt her.
You're breaking up.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And, like, that's why I just want to, like, I don't want to do this for myself. I don't give a fuck about me. I know I'm going to go out looking like the bad guy regardless. And I'm prepared for that.
Well, why did you...
Just
why,
for, like, Whitley.
Why in there, Jordan, did you say that she told you that it was like
Okay, so everything that was said was just hearsay between Michaela. Oh, see, I don't even want to say her name. Like, I don't want to say anyone's name.
Yeah.
At all. Like, I don't want to speak about anyone else.
But, I mean...
But, like, I want to put all of it in a video.
Yeah, I understand, but... Yeah, I was just wondering, because in there you had mentioned something about it was like it was a freak accident. Well, yeah, and that's something I've never heard Whitley say. And I've talked to her about it hundreds of times, you know, and she's never said anything about a freak accident. All she's ever told me was her walking into there like that. That's the only story we've ever heard, is her walking in and finding him like that. And that the only thing she's ever said is that she felt guilty about the fact that it happened. We've never heard her say, you know, that she had any guilt for an action that caused it, other than the fact that she was, you know, cheating on him.
Because that was just hearsay. It was all literally, like...
just stuff that was going around in circles.
Yes. Like, and they were like, and even Ray sent my mom a message on Facebook the other day, and it said, word for word, let me see if I can pull it up. Basically what it just said, it was like, let me see if I can find it. It was like, we never intended for the interview to be released due to Jordan's safety and privacy. We never released it to anyone.
Well, it was in the file. The recording was in the case file.
Yeah, and she was like, MBI released it.
No, well, the Attorney General's office released the entire file that had everything in it.
This is what it said. Marianne, I wanted to let you know so you could let Jordan know, which she could message me, that her interview was in that file, that the AG, I just had it mixed up, that the AG unit released, and then this guy released to everyone. We have never told anyone about the file or Jordan for her safety. She mentioned Philip Moore in there. Someone sent me a message last night asking if I knew about the interview. I said, yes, that is our interview. How do you have it? She said it was in those files that they released. You should call the AG unit and blast them. They have endangered someone for no reason. So she's telling my mom to call the AG unit and blast them. You should call the AG unit and blast them. They have endangered someone for no reason.
Did Ray know anything about the offer that Tyler made you and what Todd gave you?
I assume because, like, I didn't even arrange this. This was, like, Kyle guiding me through this. He was like, and I don't know, I'm not saying it was just Kyle, you know, like.
Well, why did it turn?
I had never talked to anyone.
Well,
like,
how did it turn from $10,000 to $500 in a mason jar of weed?
I don't know.
That's what I'm wondering. How?
Because I was, like, young as hell.
Yeah. That's what I'm wondering, how it ended up being 500 versus 10,000.
It's like that. Like, not like, I would never do that a day in my life now.
Yeah.
And money's not everything.
But was it cash that they gave you or a check?
Cash. I think they know better.
Yeah, exactly, because it's traceable. Okay. Well, look, I'm not upset with you. I understand. I know they played on a lot of innocent people, you know, and the fact that Whitley, you know, we know Whitley, you know, made some enemies along the way. We know she pissed people off along the way, and I think, and that's one thing I've told her
She
about.
never deserved that.
No, exactly, and that's one thing I've told her, you know, with Dallas. I'm like, you know, looking back now, Dallas realized she made a mistake. I said,
I mean, Whitney knows, like, I told her, I was like, I knew I was going to lose you forever, you know, like, and I mean, like you said, when we first started the conversation, like, you don't think none of us knew the extent of what was really going on. Like.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I want you to do this for me. Just hang tight. Don't talk about it to anybody else. If they come back to you, don't talk to them, because they try to manipulate people and play on words and stuff, and they try to take snippets out of stories and use just that. So don't talk to anybody, and let me see if I can't figure out a way to facilitate to do an interview with you.
I will go as far as a polygraph test.
Okay.
Because they didn't give me one before. They acted like they were going to, but then they were like, they didn't. They backed out. You know what I mean? Like, in that same day.
Well, let me talk to some people for you. And just, like I said, if you will, just don't talk to anybody else. Just kind of keep yourself to yourself.
Yeah,
and
I'm
I'll get back with you probably first of next week sometime and see if we can't facilitate some type of something and work out a way for you to get this out there.
Okay.
All right? I'm going to help you, I promise, okay?
All right.
And we're going to make it all right, okay?
Okay.
In the meantime, feel free. If you need to call me, text me, anything, got questions, do it. I want to help you get through this, okay?
I want to help Whitley. Let's focus on what really matters, because I know I'm going to look like shit regardless.
Well,
but I appreciate it a lot, and I know.
Well, and I appreciate you wanting to help Whitley. That's stand up of you wanting to make things right now. And I know you've got the best at heart. I know you've got a good heart deep down. I know you want to do what's right. So we're gonna make it work, okay?
Okay, I'm ready.
All right.
All right, Becky. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Truth is Justice. We look forward to you joining us next week as we continue to set the record straight.